What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Lucid. I want to go over some expectations for this upcoming week, what might cause some volatility in the stock price, and go over everything else that you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So starting off with macro data, we do have a couple manufacturing data points. First thing on Monday, 50 in both cases is going to be a key pivot. Anything above 50 shows more of an expansion. Anything below 50 shows more of a contraction. A lot of Fed speakers pretty much throughout the whole week, a lot on Thursday. So that in among itself could cause some volatility. But this week is rather unique. But because of the whole shutdown, we've seen more of a pause on a lot of key labor data, and that's one thing that Powell has not really liked all that much, right? And this is why he was really truly unable to commit to kind of talking about a December cut. But ADP employment, that's coming out on Wednesday, and then challenger job cuts on Thursday. So the market's going to take those two data points and really translate it to what that means for December. Right now, there's a 63% likelihood of a 25 basis point cut. So kind of hit and miss, right? So this upcoming week, it's going to change the dynamic of this. And then over and above that, on Friday, we do have the Michigan consumer sentiment. So another big inflationary data point. Aside from that, though, we do have a lot of big companies unveiling the earnings. So Monday we have Palantir, him and hers, Uber. Uber will be another one that I feel like a lot of Lucid investors will be paying attention to, especially what they bring up for partnerships. There's been a lot of big announcements that they've made. One was obviously with Lucid. So we'll kind of wait and see if they give us praise or if they give any insight. Aside from that, though, Lucid's earnings is after hours on Wednesday. But unfortunately, based on earnings whisper, I guess Lucid isn't even popular enough to be listed right here. Nonetheless, though, I do want to talk about their earnings. So currently, the estimates are negative $2.22 for the earnings per share, 370.64 million for revenue, and then over the last 90 days, 4 positive and 4 negative revisions to the earnings per share. A little bit more of a deeper dive. So that negative 222, that does work out to be a 20.71% year-over-year growth. Low end of 260, high end of 188, and that is based on 5 analysts. Looking at the revenue, though, 370.64 million, that does work out to be a 85.28% year-over-year growth. 284 the low, 532 the high. So that one is all over the place. So when it comes down to Lucid and just how Wall Street really interprets it, luckily enough, Lucid hasn't really done that great on many earnings in the past. So the bar is set very, very low. And I even brought that up on my Friday video, how technically the estimates for the revenue has been lowered. But I think in all fairness, Wall Street doesn't really care about a lot of the key metrics. They already know Lucid's burning a lot of money. As long as they're kind of moving in the right direction for revenue, I think that they kind of get a pass. But one thing that people are really going to be paying attention to is their future guidance. More specifically, what they are, if they're going to double down on the 18 to 20,000. A lot of people say that they are going to kind of stick by that, but you never know. Technically, they could lower it again. Last earnings, they did lower it from 20,000 to 18 to 20. So a little bit more kind of a pullback. But from what we've seen for numbers, what they did put out for their Q3 production and delivery numbers, that's putting a lot of strain in Q4. So again, technically this would be the venue that they would be lowering it. So if they do lower it, anticipate the market to be rather brutal on them. In addition to that, what they're kind of talking about for partnerships, because I think in all fairness, the last probably 6 earnings, they have really alluded to all these partnerships and deals with big OEMs. And so far, we've only had one come down the pipeline, and that is associated to Uber. And of course, when it comes to the retail posed questions, I think the bar is set extremely low for that. So currently, the questions that retail is going to be posing to management are these. So in the past, Lucid has always asked like answered 3 or 4 of the questions. Number 1 is posed by Nicholas. What is the time frame of a affordable entry level vehicle? They're just going to say mid-size. This is why I've mentioned and hinted at, speculated. Obviously, I'm not accusing Lucid of doing this, but I do feel like a lot of these questions are just so out there and so not really the brightest. Like, it has to be planted. Like, they're just giving them an easy question. Like, they're just going to say mid-size end of 2026. I can already answer that question. Any updates on the robo-taxi partnership with Uber? They've already very clearly, last earnings, outlined that they're going to be starting production in, ultimately, I think it's first half to the tail end of 2026. And yeah, they're not really going to be bringing too much. If you want updates on that, just follow Onvo on Twitter, and they tend to put out a lot of good stuff. And then Patrick, please share Lucid's plan to increase the market cap and shareholder value within the next 12 months to prevent the stock price to be driven back to penny stock levels through dilution and shorting. So this one, honestly, I know a lot of investors really have concerns over kind of manipulation, stock price. Just to kind of make it very, very clear, management doesn't care. And that's not just Lucid. That's like any stock out there. Most management do not care about what happens day to day, right? Because they think bigger picture. And there's always a very big disconnect in many stocks between what happens with a stock price and what happens operationally. Mark, their plan is to ensure everything happens operationally. If a stock needs to dilute or do an issuance, that is where they care about the stock price. So I think this one right here, they'll just say, hey, we're doing our best. We're kind of cutting costs. We're just ramping up. That's what management is going to answer Patrick's question. And this one, I don't know why. This is comical. And I really, really pray that they answer this question just for the hell of it. So Ahmad, what are the chances of Lucid going bankrupt? I love that question. It's not, they're obviously just going to kind of chuckle like, ha ha ha, like we're not going to go bankrupt. But this really just is more of a testament to exactly what shareholders have really gone through with Lucid. So yeah, kind of comical. On a side note, I think even worst case scenarios with Lucid, we wouldn't be talking about bankruptcy up until probably 2032 at the very least, right? Because on a side note, Lucid could dilute significantly and do many reverse stock splits and kind of kick the can down the pipeline. So as far as going bankrupt, I don't see that happening anytime soon, but absolutely epic that it made top 5 questions. And then this one, is Lucid going to come out with a affordable sedan to drive future growth? They're just going to say the Pure. We have the Pure. That's it. So yeah, unfortunately, not really that much. So this is a quick summary of what I guess Wall Street's really going to be paying attention to in regards to Lucid's earnings. In my personal opinion, I do feel like they will be cutting the guidance to between that, most likely, I would assume 16 to 18. That's what they're going to be probably lowering it to. And then that way they could easily achieve that. So I think that's what's going to happen. Wall Street won't really like that. But I don't really see also any new big crazy partnerships announced. They'll bring up Nvidia, of course, and kind of hang on to that and dangle that as a massive catalyst, but I do feel like they will be cutting guidance a little bit. Aside from that, 32.3 is the percentage of the free float being shorted going into this upcoming week, which that does work out to be 39.76 million shares overall being shorted. Cost to borrow average is 14.77, and then short score is 77.57. So the higher the number, the higher the likelihood of a squeeze happening. So when it comes to shorts, they've actually been starting to really increase quite a lot. So they are feeling a lot more bold. So kind of interesting timing going into their upcoming earnings. When it comes to the bulls standpoint, there's a consensus for it to be roughly around that 1850. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub, kind of looks like between 1450 and 16. So definitely there's a little bit more downside anticipated. A couple of key levels to watch for though. With it at 1775, it is right above this S1. So 1765 and then 1545 is going to be support levels. 2119 and 2473 is going to be the next strong target / resistance points. Unless they announce a big blockbuster partnership. I do not feel R1 or possibly this pivot point is realistic, but you never know. Lucid tends to surprise people at the most interesting of times. The current implied move is around 11.1%, and that works out to be a $2 move in either direction. So take the time, research options over the weekend, because a lot of volatile stocks such as Lucid, you can make some pretty good money by just doing covered calls or buying calls, selling puts. There's a lot of different ways that you can make a lot of money, whether you are bullish or bearish. Going into this upcoming week on a technical standpoint, it's not all that great. Of course, it is below that 50-day moving average. It is kind of getting to that general range. So of course, when we were breaking below that 50-day moving average, I was very clear on a lot of my videos where historically that would bring us to around that 1650 to 1750 range, and it is conveniently going there. So once we hit off kind of that level, we might do a nice V-shaped recovery, but that might kind of coincide with their earnings. So it's all going to come down to the numbers and what they give. If Lucid's earnings is positive, you'll see a very nice push higher because stochastic RSI is very, very oversold. Looking at the market position from Friday, you see some willing buyers up until around that 1720-ish range. And then aside from that, it's kind of a free fall. So Lucid really, really needs to execute with their upcoming earnings. And I've been covering Lucid for a very long time. I think some earnings have been a little bit more optimistic rather than others. This one, I'm kind of neutral. I'm not really bearish on Lucid. I'm not really overly bullish because I feel like there isn't really anything in either direction. Now we're just honestly waiting for Lucid to hit the mark. So even if they do reiterate, let's say between that 18 to 20,000 for their 2025 targets, then most likely the stock price is just going to trade somewhat flat. So like I said, kind of the neutral, and unless Lucid puts out something positive, then you could see a nice recovery, but most likely it's just going to trade between probably that 17 to kind of like $19 range for at least the foreseeable future. So let me know your thoughts on Lucid. Are you optimistic? Are you bearish? What is your kind of general thoughts on Lucid? One very good question that we should have really asked, although I kind of act like we can really pick and choose because all these questions are absolutely horrible and asked kind of from the very beginning, but marketing. What is Lucid's current plan for their marketing? And I want them to kind of transition and talk about the upcoming World Cup because that's going to be right around the corner, right? Anyone who wants to do any marketing should already be putting in their bids right now. So if Lucid really wants to do and advertise in the World Cup, which is in North America, so Canada, Mexico, and the States, like they need to kind of start doing that now. So let me know your thoughts on Lucid. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Always greatly appreciate that. And then one final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. Put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades. Worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.